everybody, and welcome to Hey Coach Tony. I'm your host, Tony Fiorino, and it is Sunday, March 20th. Well, it's that time of year again. Winter sports are coming to a close, and spring sports are about to begin. So I thought it would be a great time to revisit a segment that I love, and I call it Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About a Youth Sports Official, but Were Afraid to Ask. That's right. A few times a year, I like to give my listeners a chance to ask their toughest questions to a legitimate, certified expert in the area of youth sports officiating. This week, I'm honored to have on the show with me Barry Mano. Now, Barry is the president of the National Association of Sports Officials, and he is also president/editor-in-chief, chief cook and bottle washer for Referee Magazine. Barry and I are going to be taking your calls today, and I want you to take note of our new number. You can now dial 1-855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. So give us a call and cut loose with some of the things that are driving you nuts about referees, umpires, and other officials who make your life miserable when you go to your kids' games. And remember, you can also email me your thoughts at heycoachtony@gmail.com. Now, while we're waiting for your calls, let me please introduce to you Barry Mano. Hey, Barry, thanks so much for joining us this morning. How are you doing this morning, Barry?
Very fine, Tony. Good to be with you.
Well, hey, Barry, listen, I am obviously a big fan of your work, and I'm very excited that you were able to join us today. I do know you got a pretty crazy schedule. So do me a favor, and for my listeners, can you start by giving us a little bit of history behind the National Association of Sports Officials and Referee Magazine?
Yeah, Referee Magazine, I founded it in 1975, the end of 1975, for the simple reason that I felt at that point we needed a voice. I was a fairly young basketball referee. My father was a referee. My older brother was a referee, so it was part of our family. And it just occurred to me that we needed somebody, something, some organ that would tell our side of the story, share our perspective. And with that simple thought, the first issue of Referee Magazine was January of 1976. Then fast forward 4 years, I had the idea of starting a National Association for Sports Officials, because not only did we need, say, a magazine, we wanted other educational materials. Importantly, we needed insurance. We needed liability insurance to protect us, because even back starting in 1980, sports officials, the men and women that do this undertaking, were being sued for various things, and there needed to be a liability insurance policy in place. And so that was the genesis of the National Association of Sports Officials. Today we have just under 20,000 dues-paying members in the organization, and we speak at all levels in all sports. That's sort of our mission today.
Well, needless to say, in my opinion at least, there has never been a better time for a governing body, or let's even call it a protective body, kind of, let's call it, for lack of a better term, let's call it a union for these youth sports officials.
Let's not call it a union, because we're not a union. We're a not-for-profit 501c3 educational association. Yes, we do have import and we do have influence on a lot of things that go on in officiating, but certainly where we do not have that influence or import is when it comes to the bargaining for game fees, working conditions, things that normally fall to the recognized collective bargaining agent, which we know as a union. That's not us.
Well, and nor should it be. That's the nonsense and garbage that, that's the downfall of unions. I'm talking about the protection and the advocation on behalf of these youth sports officials across the country. Guys like you are certainly doing the right things to help make sure that this machine is running smoothly. Now, needless to say, there are a bunch of people that are going to be calling in today to get some of your thoughts. And hey, listen, some of them are going to try to, I'm sure, bust your shoes a little bit about some of the things that are happening around the youth sports officials. In fact, you know what? I want to start opening the lines up right now. Like I said, you can dial in at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. And, before we get to my questions, I believe we've got Steve on the line from Katonas. Hey, Steve, you're on Let Them Play. How you doing this morning?
Hey, Coach Tony, how are you? Barry, how are you?
Very fine. Good morning, Steve.
So a couple of questions. Well, one in particular. I mean, I could have several questions, but one question. As a youth sports coach for a long time, I always try to be on my best behavior as it relates to either umpires or referees. And the question I have, for those parents, coaches, or kids that are, let's say, not on their best behavior during a game, do you and not even you, but do you think that an umpire or a referee will ever intentionally make bad calls, almost to spite the offending party?
Well, God forbid that would happen. Does it happen? If it does, it's most infrequent. It's not part of our DNA, frankly. We're really there to be as impartial as we can. Now, at the youth level, you have some special challenges because, in effect, you have the least proficient players, you have the least proficient coaches, you have the least proficient officials, all coming together at one time. I mean, this is sort of a learning environment. And on top of that, in many youth sports areas around the country, the officials end up serving almost as a security force. You don't have that security at the game site that you have once you get into high school and college, etc. So you have a lot of challenges intersecting at the same time. But to answer your question, I'm sure it happens. It can happen, as horrible as it is, that an official would do something like that. But we are trained from day one when we go into this endeavor to be impartial. That's what people are hiring us to do, and I hope that's what we do each and every time.
Well, I'm glad you did point out, Barry, that you know what? Referees are trained, umpires are trained, and they are trained to be as impartial as possible and as impersonal as you can be. But let's face it, come on, Barry, we do know that it does happen because just like there are good and bad coaches, there are good and bad officials, and there are guys who show up to the games with a chip on their shoulder, and the first person that questions a call, you can almost taste it, that guy is gonna give that particular group of parents or coaches or whatever a bit of a hard time. Steve, do you have any other questions for Barry?
No, that's good. Keep going, Tony.
All right, well, you can listen for a little bit here because I want to know, Barry, how directly or indirectly, or are you moving in the direction of providing, let's call it that national certification where, listen, when you coach a kid's team, they make you sit and watch this stupid video that's all about, sportsmanship and blah, blah, blah. Are you guys moving towards getting involved with the actual certification on a national level to train these guys?
No, we are not. There are so many governing bodies all over this country, myriad governing bodies, from youth all the way. You have recreation, high school. There's all of these just different jurisdictions. What we do nationally is provide a consistent source of educational materials about three important things. One, of course, is the rules. You got to know the rules. The second thing is what we call mechanics. Where do you stand? What are the signals? And those protocols. And then the third thing, which is where NASO really excels, is in this area we call game intelligence, which is dealing with game management, man management, person management, all those things that go on from the time you come to the parking lot to the time you get back in your vehicle and leave. To take care of that in total environment is something that we need much better training, and NASO absolutely is leading the charge in the whole game intelligence area.
Well, you know what? Right now, what'd you say? You got 20,000 dues-paying members? All right, well, we need to bump that number up because I got to tell you, Barry, I'm a huge fan of what you do, but you talk game intelligence and youth sports officials, and that's an oxymoron right now because, let's face it, most officials, it's a hard job and it's a thankless job, but they need to do a better job of doing exactly what you're talking about and managing the environment from when they get out of their car to when they get back in their car. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that, but let's think through the other end of the telescope. You expect these men and women and young people to come to these youth contests for whatever it is, $10 a game, $7 a game, $11 a game, and they're committing all this time. They have regular jobs in life, and so what happens is this: you have only so much time that you can dedicate. As dedicated as you are, you only have so much time you can dedicate, and what normally happens is you fall back on the rule book. That is your first line of defense in this business. So you learn the rule book, and when you read something in the rule book, that's, of course, what you're going to enforce every time. And there's not a lot of time left over to deal with the game intelligence training that you need. So we need to find a way to fast track this training in game intelligence. There's not enough of it going on. I agree with that.
And again, kudos to you for the efforts that you put forth. And Steve, thanks for the call. It's always great to hear from you. Barry, this is great stuff, and we're humming right by. I got to go to a quick break. So Barry, I want you to stick around for us. Before we do go to break, folks, listen, let's face it. Finally, ski season. I guess we can declare ski season's over. Okay, but there is still some time to take advantage of the amazing rates for next year's season pass at Catamount Family Ski Area up in Hillsdale, New York. I really do want to take a quick moment to say thanks to Rich Edwards and the great people at Catamount for being such an amazing sponsor and supporter of the show this past year. But again, just because the ski season is ending doesn't mean you can't enjoy Catamount. I'm telling you, really soon, they're going to pack away all the ski stuff, and they're going to open up Catamount Aerial Adventure Park. And if you haven't tried this, you got to bring your family. It is a great day of ziplining through the mountains, through the trees. My family and I did it a couple of times last year, and it was a blast. So keep your eyes open for the opening of the Aerial Adventure Park at Catamount. Check in at www.catamountski.com for more information, and make sure you tell them Coach Tony sent you. Stick around, folks. Be right back.